What's good, Culturalist? You already know what time it is. Today we're locking in with one of the most influential crews to ever come out the East, Ruff Ryders. From gritty street anthems to platinum plaques, they gave us a whole era of hard-hitting hip-hop. But beyond the bikes, bandanas, and iconic R logo, where did everybody end up? Today we're checking in on the core crew, some lesser-known members, and even a producer who helped shape the movement. Now, while you're here, make sure to check out our Ruff Ryders Raised Me tees and hoodies, available now on the site. It's only right we rep the legacy the way it deserves. Now hit the subscribe, like the video, and tap into our Patreon for exclusive album reactions. Let's ride. MC Jin. MC Jin's story with Ruff Ryders is one of the most unique in hip-hop history. As the first Asian American rapper signed to a major label and the Freestyle Friday champ on 106 & Park, the hype was real. Dude was unbeatable on that stage, and when Ruff Ryders scooped him up in the early 2000s, it felt like history in the making. He dropped his debut, The Rest is History, in 2004, with production from Just Blaze and features from Kanye, Twista, and more. But while the skills were there, the industry didn't quite know how to market them. The album underperformed, and Jin left Ruff Ryders shortly after. But he didn't stop. Jin shifted gears and started dropping music in Cantonese, building a huge following overseas, especially in Hong Kong and China. He also pivoted into acting and faith-based music, becoming a born-again Christian and using his platform in a more spiritual way. These days, Jin is still active, doing speaking engagements, music, and appearing in Asian American media circles. He may not have become a superstar in the US, but he broke barriers and opened doors that are still being felt today. Respect to the trailblazer. Drag On. If there was ever a Ruff Ryder that felt like he was this close to a major breakthrough, it was Drag On. Straight out of the Bronx with a raspy voice and aggressive flow, he was handpicked to ride with the squad in their late 90s peak. His debut, Opposite of H2O, dropped in 2000 and went gold. Solid numbers, especially considering how crowded the rap game was at that time. Drag wasn't the most polished, but he had that raw street presence that fit the Ruff Ryders mold perfectly. You throw on Spit These Bars or Down Bottom and it's instant nostalgia. He's also held his own in the Exit Wounds movie with DMX and Steven Seagal. A random but memorable moment in early 2000s hip-hop cinema. But after his second album, Hell and Back, didn't connect the same way, his visibility dropped. Label changes, industry politics, and the overall fade of the Ruff Ryders machine didn't help. With that said, Drag never stopped working. He continued releasing music independently, tapping into that loyal fan base that still remembers the ciphers and bandanas. In recent years, he's made a bit of a comeback in the underground circuit, appearing on podcasts, doing freestyles, and talking about his time on the label. While he never hit superstar status, Drag On's spot in hip-hop is locked. He was a key piece of that Ruff Ryders puzzle, and fans who really know, they still rock with him. Infrared and Cross. Now, if you were really outside during the Ruff Ryders run, you remember Infrared and Cross. The Yonkers duo was introduced on Ruff Ryders Volume 1 and immediately made noise with that gritty energy and street-ready delivery. They weren't just tag-alongs either, they fit. They were poised to be the next wave under the Ruff Ryders umbrella. Street mixtapes were bubbling, the cosigns were there, but the debut album never fully materialized. It was one of those classic almost situations. Label shifts, industry politics, timing, you name it. They had heat, but never the machine to push them over the top. Also, the Ruff Ryders wave cooled. Infrared and Cross kept it low-key. They dropped a few solo joints and sporadic appearances, but never returned to the spotlight in a major way. Still, to fans who remember those Ride or Die compilations, they're etched in the DNA of that era. Raw, unfiltered, and right there in the mix when the Ruff Ryders were at their most lethal. Young One. Young One came in the game like a cannonball. The Atlanta rapper signed to Ruff Ryders in the early 2000s and brought a whole different energy to the camp. Where most of the crew leaned New York street, Young One was pure Southern chaos. Loud, animated, almost cartoonishly aggressive. Introduced via the Down Bottom music video where his verse replaced Juvenile's. In hindsight, not the best setup because 1, that song was a hit, and 2, Juvie's verse was very popular. The relaunch came a few years later via the Swizz Beatz produced Tear It Up with DMX, Lil Flip, and David Banner. Man, that beat sounded like a marching band went to war. He dropped his debut, The Dirtiest Thirstiest, in 2004, and while it had a couple of bangers, it didn't quite catch on. Maybe it was timing, maybe it was marketing, but the momentum didn't last. After that, Young One faded from the mainstream, but never stopped rapping completely. In the years since, he's dropped a few independent tracks and freestyles, but nothing major. He's kept a pretty low profile. No big drama, no headlines, just one of those artists that made a loud interest and then quietly dipped. Still, Tear It Up is a time capsule. If you know, you know. Parlay. Ruff Ryders wasn't all hard-hitting bars and street anthems. They tried to diversify the sound too, and that's where Parlay came in. A Harlem-based R&B group, Parlay was supposed to be the smooth to all the rough. They had solid vocals, the image was there, and they even dropped a couple of singles. Most notably, It's All Good, which got modest spins in the early 2000s. They were featured on a few Ruff Ryders compilations and soundtracks, and there was talk of a full-length album, but it never officially dropped. Whether it was label politics, bad timing, or just not catching the wave, Parlay ended up being more of a what could have been situation. After the Ruff Ryders momentum slowed, the group quietly disbanded. There's been little public activity from them since, and info is pretty scarce. No drama, no big fallouts, just a group that came, dropped a few joints, and faded into the background. Still, they played a role in showing that Ruff Ryders wasn't afraid to branch out. Even if the run was short, the vibe was there. R&B edge wrapped in leather bandanas. Fiend. Fiend might have been No Limit on paper, but he was Ruff Ryders in spirit. After making noise with There's One in Every Family and his work with Beats by the Pound, Fiend left No Limit and inked a deal with the Ruff Ryders camp in early 2000s. The voice was unmistakable, deep, gravelly, and built for street anthems. His Ruff Ryders debut, The Addiction, was teased on his collab with 3 6 Mafia, the Headbusters album, but unfortunately never dropped. But he stayed active behind the scenes, writing, recording, and featuring on mixtapes. While a lot of fans expected a bigger push, Fiend quietly slid back into his independent bag, and he's never stopped working. Under his International Jones moniker, he dropped a string of soulful, smoked out projects, way more chill than his early No Limit aggression, but the bars stay sharp. He's also a staple in New Orleans, doing community work, acting, and staying tapped into the local scene. Fiend may not have had a major label comeback, but the catalog is deep, the respect is solid, and the hustle never left. So whether it's No Limit or Ruff Ryders, Fiend always played his position, and played it well. Styles P. Styles P, aka The Ghost, has arguably one of the most consistent and respected runs out of anyone in the Ruff Ryders camp. From the l.o.x days to his solo material, he's always stayed true to his formula. Gritty street tales, spiritual gems, and bars that hit you in the chest. His debut, A Gangster and a Gentleman, gave us the classic Good Times, and he's been dropping projects like Clockwork ever since. And not just throwaway mixtapes, full albums with real replay value. Whether solo, with the l.o.x, or collabs with artists like Talib Kweli and Dave East, Styles kept showing versatility without ever selling out. Outside of music, he's been leading a whole health revolution. Alongside Jadakiss, he's opened Juices for Life, promoting wellness in the same communities he once rapped about surviving in. That grown man shift didn't water down his image, it enhanced it. Now you got a rapper who can talk kale and karma, then turn around and bar you to death on a feature. Have y'all tapped into his online health food store, Pharmacy for Life? Go ahead and order you some of that black seed oil or that oil of oregano. Hey, that shit ain't no joke. Styles has also become a respected voice in the culture, whether on podcasts, interviews, or just speaking truth on social media. Still low-key, still sharp, still ghosting features like a pro. At this point, Styles is more than just a rapper. He's a blueprint for growth in hip-hop without ever losing your core. Sheek Louch. Sheek has always been the quiet muscle of the l.o.x. Not the flashiest, not the most lyrical, but consistent and dependable. If Jada is the voice and Styles is the mind, Sheek is the anchor. When Ruff Ryders was running the game, Sheek played his position and played it well. He dropped his solo debut Walk With Me in 2003 under D-Block and Def Jam, and while it didn't set the charts on fire, it was a solid body of work. Sheek never chased the commercial lane. He stuck to his gritty New York roots, and over the years he dropped several solo albums like Silverback Gorilla and Donnie G, Don Gorilla, carving out a lane for himself in that street rap world. Sheek's also been a key part of keeping D-Block alive, helping push new artists and staying tapped into the mixtape scene. He may not trend online, but he's always working, always visible in the right places. Whether it's dropping new music, hitting the stage with the l.o.x, or popping up on features, Sheek's never really left the game. In short, he's never had to reinvent himself. He's been real from day one, and that consistency is why he's still standing. Quietly one of the most respected OGs in the game. You don't just listen to music, it shapes you. That vibe, that energy, that voice. Our Raised Me merch, it's all about honoring the albums that built the culture that built you. 8 legendary albums on every piece. A nod to the past, a flex for the future. Ready to rep your roots? Cop now at shop.culturalisttheory.com. Jadakiss. Jadakiss has been nice since cassette tapes, and that's not up for debate. As one-third of the l.o.x, he carved out a legacy early, but as a solo artist on the Ruff Ryders, he proved he could stand on his own. Albums like Kiss the Game Goodbye and Kiss of Death gave us hits like Why and You Make Me Wanna, but more importantly, they showcased that raspy voice, elite pen, and no-frills New York grit. Fast forward to now, and Kiss is one of the few MCs from that era who's never fallen off. He's been consistent, whether it's albums, features, or freestyles. He's always reminded people why he's in everybody's top 5. His verses with Fab and the l.o.x absolute domination of Dipset put a whole new spotlight on him, even for a younger generation. Outside the booth, he's tapped into business, launching a coffee brand with his father and son, yes, generational bars, and staying visible through podcast interviews and appearances. Just recently, he and Fat Joe announced a new podcast that is a must-watch. Jada's just not relevant, he's respected. That's a rare combo in rap, and he earned it bar for bar. Eve. Eve was the first lady of Ruff Ryders and wasn't just holding her own, she was running it. When What Y'all Want and Love Is Blind dropped, it was clear she had something different. She can go toe-to-toe with the hardest spitters in the crew, but also tap into vulnerability and crossover appeal. Then came the sitcoms, movie roles, fashion deals. Eve was a brand before rappers even really knew what that meant. After dropping 3 solid albums, including the platinum-selling Let There Be Eve, she stepped back from music in the mid-2000s. Not because she fell off, but because Hollywood came calling. Barbershop, The Cookout, her own sitcom Eve, she was everywhere. And unlike a lot of artists turned actors, Eve had range. In the 2010s, she stayed relatively low-key. She moved to London, got married to entrepreneur Maximilian Cooper, and became a stepmom. She popped up here and there, a feature, a red carpet, a talk show stint, but music took a back seat. That is until 2021 when she joined the Versus series against Trina and reminded everyone why she's in a lane of her own. Bars still sharp, stage presence still elite. Most recently, she gave birth to her first child and is leaning into motherhood. But don't be surprised if she drops another project or pops up on screen again. Eve's one of those rare cases where leaving the game didn't tarnish the legacy. It actually made her legend bigger. First lady, fashion killer, businesswoman icon. Man, respect her reign. Swizz Beatz. Swizz Beatz is one of the few from the Ruff Ryders camp who didn't just evolve, he leveled up. From the jump, Swizz wasn't your average producer. He brought a sound that matched the crew's energy, loud, aggressive, and built to blow out your car speakers. Ruff Ryders Anthem, that was him. Party Up, that too. His beats defined an era, but Swizz was never content with being just in the background. By the early 2000s, he had already stepped into artist mode, dropping his own projects like One Man Band, and while the rapping was hit or miss, the production stayed elite. But where Swizz really started making moves was outside of the studio. He became a true mogul, art collector, fashion collaborator, brand ambassador. You named it, he touched it. He even went back to school studying at Harvard Business School for fun. That's a different flex. In recent years, he's kept his presence strong in hip-hop, but more from an executive seat. One of his biggest contributions lately, Versus. Co-created with Timbaland, it started during the pandemic and turned into a full-on cultural event, celebrating legends while breaking viewer records. He also continues to executive produce projects for DMX, the Godfather of Harlem soundtrack, and his own wife, Alicia Keys. Oh, speaking of that, yeah, he's married to her, which is another W in itself. Swizz went from the kid lacing beats for his uncle's label to becoming a global brand with his hands in everything. He's still loud, still stylish, still Swizz, and he's proof that hip-hop's business side doesn't have to mean playing it safe. It just means playing smarter. DMX. You can't talk Ruff Ryders without talking DMX. The heartbeat, the face, the soul of the entire movement. When X dropped It's Dark and Hell Is Hot in '98, the game shifted. No shiny suits, no bubblegum hooks, just raw pain, barked through gritted teeth, and delivered with a level of intensity the culture hadn't seen before. Then he doubled down with Flesh of My Flesh the same year and made history. 2 #1s in 1 year? Legendary. DMX was unmatched in his prime. Album after album, movie after movie. Belly, Romeo Must Die, Cradle to the Grave, and the criminally underrated Never Die Alone. He wasn't just a rapper, he was a movement. But as we all know, with the highs came some very real lows. X battled addiction, legal issues, and personal demons for most of his life. Through it all, fans stayed loyal because his music wasn't just entertainment, it was therapy. In his later years, X started to make a comeback. He signed with Def Jam again, reconnected with Swizz, and recorded what would be his final album, Exodus. The project dropped in 2021, just weeks after his tragic passing. Even in death, X's impact was undeniable. The outpouring of love, tributes, and stories showed how deep his influence ran. He's got a new project on the way allegedly and has even dropped a prayer album in between. DMX wasn't perfect and he never pretended to be, but that's exactly why fans loved him. He wore his flaws out loud. He prayed hard, rapped harder, and left a blueprint for emotional honesty in hip-hop that still echoes today. Long live the dog. Man, Ruff Ryders for life. And if you're feeling the Ruff Ryders nostalgia, we got more where that came from. Check out our other videos breaking down classic albums, crew deep dives, and moments that define the movement. And for the real ones who lived it, we just dropped our Ruff Ryders Raise Me hoodies and tees for the fans who remember the anthems, the bikes, and that iconic chain. Hit the link in the description and grab yours before they're gone. Culturalists, let us know your favorite Ruff Ryders memory in the comments and what label should we cover next. Until the next time, it's your man CJ for CT. I'm out.